Hi, my name is Hannah Hammond. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Utah. I've been recovered from my eating disorder for 15 years. I've been practicing with my license for 7 years. 4 of those years roughly have been in the eating disorder rehab centers, and 3 of those years-ish have been with drugs and alcohol. I was asked to share how do people mend their relationship with food and have a healthy relationship with food. I can talk about this from mostly a personal level because dietitians really do this work in the professional world, but I do have some resources. I want to just say, so I'm using the resources, I'm using the book Making Peace with Your Plate, written by Esper Andrus and Robin somebody. Robin is recovered from an eating disorder and from drugs and alcohol. Esper is a licensed clinical social worker in Utah. I'm also using the book Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Tribole, and I cannot remember the other dietitian's name, which is terrible. But it's the only diet, if you will, that's been written by dietitians. The rest of them are written by some other medical professional. So just a unique twist on how to make peace with food. And then the last piece I'm using is from it's an Instagram account called Hey Tiffany Rowe. So those are the 3 places that I'm really going to be using as the backbone for what I want to share today. And I am so passionate about intuitive eating. I think in the last 15 years, I probably have purchased 15 of those books and given out to friends. I love the principles. They saved my life. There were a lot of things that saved my life, but really trying to make peace with food really saved my life. Like most people, I was raised in a diet mentality and a diet culture just because that was the thing, and it still is the thing. And so learning how to reject the diet mentality, learning how to eat when I'm hungry, learning how to stop when I'm full are huge skills. And so to that point, I spent 4 months in an intensive acute care facility, and I was being fed intuitive eating. Like I was being fed those principles, and it took me 4 months to really digest and accept them. And from there, it took me like 3 or 4 years to learn how to implement them. So today I've been given 15 minutes. And if you feel like you are being fire hosed, it's because you kind of are. So use this resource, take some time to digest it, rewatch it as you need to, and really use the books that I mentioned at the beginning and the Instagram account that I talked about, because I think that's the best way for us to really figure out how is it that I can implement intuitive eating. So here's where I had to start, is using my senses. You know, I was asked, can you please give some people some takeaways, like some how-tos to make peace with food? This is one of them. We have 5 wonderful senses. I was once asked, what would you do if you had to lose one of your senses? Which one would it be? And I'm over here like, ooh, I don't know, and I don't know. But anyway, so the senses, using your senses to help you figure out if you are hungry. So if I use sight, does the food look good? I've traveled a lot. There are a lot of foods that do not look good. And then I use some of my other senses. Does it smell good? All the Peruvian food that I ate looked interesting and smelled delicious. And then it tasted good. There were so many fun flavors in it. When I went to a restaurant in San Francisco, I had tofu. It did not taste good to me at all. And it was in a Chinese restaurant. Anyway, it just didn't taste good, and it didn't smell good. When I went to China, they called it stinky tofu, and all the Chinese people were like, but it tastes so good. And I'm going, I can't even get over the look and the smell. So intuitively, I didn't want to try it. But does it look good? Does it smell good? Does it taste good? Does it sound good to me? When I go to restaurants, I am a visual, so I'm looking for the pictures, and I'm looking for, does it sound good? Does it sound good to have a burger? Does it sound good to have a salad? So I can use my senses for that. Sometimes I will poll the server and ask them, like, what's your favorite thing? But usually from that, I'm going, okay, well, what sounds good and what visually would look good? And another piece is, does it feel good in my mouth? I am not one to eat inferior food, unless that's really the only thing that there is there. So tonight we had a Stouffer's frozen dinner for dinner. Why? Because that's what we had available. I'm a working mom. I work more than one job. I have 2 kids. I have a husband. We live busy lives. And so sometimes I use frozen meals. And does it taste good in my mouth? Feel good in my mouth? No, but it is what we have, and it's what my time allows. So sometimes I do resort to that. So does it feel good in my tummy? Does it feel good in my mouth? Those are good things to ask. The last question that I think is really important, if you don't get any takeaways, take this one. The nurturing piece. Do I want it? And if I want it, then why do I want it? Don't get too hung up on the why, but do ask yourself, why is it that I want this food? Do I want it because it's just available? Do I want it because it's the only thing, like I never got to have it as a kid and now I can eat as much of it as I want? I struggled with that in my recovery. There were like peanut butter was a forbidden food for me. And so in recovery, I did spend a lot of time eating it only because, gosh, I spent so long depriving myself of this that now I'm overeating it. And it did get to a point where it wasn't tasting good, but I didn't know how to stop. So if I can use all of my senses plus that last nurturing piece, do I want it and why? Chocolate, a piece of chocolate can be a wafer of comfort, but it can also, like several bars of chocolate can be a numbing. So when I'm nurturing myself, there's this, am I doing it to soothe? Am I doing it because it's comfort? And not to numb out. Am I enjoying it? In economics, they talk about utils. Does every bite of this have the same utility value? That's part of how we learn when we are full, is that, gosh, this is not as satisfying in my mouth or to any of my senses as it used to be. So I'm probably full of that thing. For me, sometimes I want a big bowl of salad, and sometimes halfway through I'm like, I'm done with the crunchy, crispy, wet thing. I like something that's a little more savory or salty. So I think if you can practice eating without the TV on, without reading books, without watching videos, without listening to audiobooks, that's one way to get in touch with your senses and the nurturing piece. Eat your food mindfully. Enjoy the sense of eating. In other cultures outside of the United States, they're really good at this. And in the United States, we are not. In fact, a lot of people say, no, I just do better if I'm studying while I'm eating because I'm killing two birds with one stone. And the truth is, we are mindlessly eating. We are not enjoying our food. So keep in mind the senses. If you answer yes to any of the above questions, the senses and the nurturing piece, and you're in a positive mindset, eat it because you're most likely hungry. If you're answering yes and you're not in a good mindset, maybe you need to reevaluate. Am I doing this out of an emotional need, or am I doing this because I'm physically hungry? So best principle of intuitive eating is to eat what I want, which we'll get into, and to eat when I'm hungry. So I just gave you some tips on how to know if I'm hungry. Let's talk a little bit about finding out what is it that I want. In my eating disorder, I would say I didn't want any foods, but that's just because I had a lot of diet mentality. I had a lot of negative mindset. So, and then I've also treated people who say, I'm eating what I want, I'm gaining all this weight, and na. And I'm like, well, you're not eating because you're actually hungry. You're eating to fill an emotional need. You're eating to numb. You're eating to punish. So let's get into the 10 principles of intuitive eating. And again, please read the book because there is just so much information. I'm not kidding. I have shared intuitive eating more than any other book that I've ever read. I can't say I'm a bookworm, but I have read. And I've shared this book so much as a clinician and as a layperson. Really, really great book. So principle number 1 is rejecting the diet mentality. And I think it's the first principle because it is our culture is so saturated in it. If somebody comes on Monday to work and you're asking your friend, like, how was your weekend? When you respond, oh, I was bad this weekend. Back in the 50s, that was, I cheated on my partner. I was unfaithful. Lately, if you listen to anything by Jean Kilbourne, who is an incredible researcher on body image and food, she's like, now it means that I cheated on my diet when I'm like, oh, I was bad this weekend. We have a serious diet mentality. Clean eating is a great idea, but a lot of people end up obsessing about that. And so they'll spend hours or they'll over obsess about what foods are going to give them the most nutrients. This diet mentality we have to find a balance to it where we can accept that foods are good. All foods are good. When I was in treatment, in fact, we did a group with nutritionists, dietitians, registered dietitians, and they said, okay, here's food A. It has some vitamins and minerals. It's low in calorie content. It's got some good carbs for you. There's food B that has some fiber in it. Actually, the other one had fiber too. It has fiber, it has protein, it has some fat, it has some good calories. Which one are you gonna eat? I was still really, really sick, and so I was afraid of fat. So I said, no, I'm gonna eat food A. But most people were saying, well, if I eat some fat, then I will probably eat less because I'll get full faster. So both of us were coming from diet mentality. But in the end, like, my goodness, what good things come from this? And then they said, do you know what this food is? And we're all just like dying, like, what is this food gonna be? And it was an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie. It offers good things for you. Food is broken down into four things: amino acids, carbohydrate, protein, and fat. And if I can really wrap my head around that, then a cookie is not going to kill me because it offers protein from the butter, it offers fat from the butter, and it offers carbohydrate. And is it the best? No. But you know what? Sometimes we have to make peace with food and go, I got to reject that diet mentality where food is either good or bad, and I place moral judgment for myself on if I've ingested it. I've talked so much about the diet mentality. There are 10 principles, and I'm on number 1, but I think it's because it's so key. Really being able to reject that diet mentality and say food is food, and all food is going to offer me something in balance. And if I can use my senses for what sounds good, I enjoy Chipotle dressing with my chicken and bacon sandwich. My husband likes ranch. We prefer different things. My kids adore avocados. I still can't do it. Why? Because my senses tell me it's not good, not for any other reason. I've now come to a place where I've rejected the diet mentality, and I've made a lot of peace with food. So pay attention to if you're labeling foods as good or bad, because food is food. It's like fuel. It's like gasoline. Like, it's all going to help your car get going. Number 2 principle is to honor my hunger. We don't do a very good job of this. We cheat. We water load. We drink lots of water to make ourselves feel full. We chew on gum so that we don't have to eat. We'll eat salad first so that I'm full on salad, and then I don't have space for these other foods. So we do some funky things, some wonky things with our hunger. So if we can use our senses to help us, like if a food smells good or sounds good or tastes good or looks, any of those things, it's like, I'm probably hungry. In the book, they have a whole hunger scale that they explain at length, and I think it's super helpful. What am I hungry for? I once went to a restaurant shortly after treatment, and I was like, man, I just want a chocolate cake. And my mom kept asking, well, yeah, but what do you want to eat? And I'm going, chocolate cake. I'm hungry for a chocolate cake. It's going to give me what I need. For me, that was really healing because, again, that was a forbidden food in my disorder. I didn't feel sick afterwards because I didn't eat the whole cake. Am I going to eat cake every day for all my meals and snacks? No. So part of honoring our hunger is recognizing that there doesn't have to be a scarcity, like, oh gosh, there will only be chocolate cake today, or like at holidays. I think that's why people overeat on pies, is they've got this real, like, there's this scarcity and I have to eat it all. And I'm going, no, you don't. It will be there. There will be other Thanksgivings, other Christmases. The third principle is making peace with food. I've kind of touched on that already, so I'm going to move forward because I think making peace with food is an all-around part of what we do. But again, that, like, there are no good or bad foods. All the food is welcomed into my life. The 4 is challenge the food police. The food police of, like, well, how much are you eating? What was your portion size? I had a roommate who carried a scale around with her, and she would measure out her food and weigh her food, and she didn't let herself have even a gram over what, her nutritionist had given to her. The food police has got to go, where we're like, oh my gosh, I ate my whole meal, or oh my, and the comments that we make, like, I'm going to need a wheelchair to get out of here. Those kinds of comments don't feed a healthy mindset. When we recognize, like, I'm allowed to have this, I deserve to have this, my body's a machine, and I can make peace with that. Then I ingest the food that I want, I fill my gas tank, and when the fuel light goes on, or when my gas tank is half full, then I eat some more food. So again, making peace with food and recognizing, are you the food police? are you the one that's like, you shouldn't eat that, or that's not going to be, you don't want that, nagging at other people or nagging at myself when I'm hungry. The next principle is feeling my fullness. And that one takes so much time to really go, am I satisfied with this food? Am I satiated with it? If I want a brownie, because that really intuitively, all my senses say that's delicious, but my food police and my moral judgment say, well, that's bad. I'm going to go around and eat a bag of carrots and 6 apples, and I'm going to eat all these healthy things, and I'm going to fill my body with a lot of calories that I didn't actually want, and I'm still hungry, and I might even eat 3 or 4 brownies because I didn't feel my fullness. So eating the food that I'm hungry for and then stopping when I'm full. It actually takes 15 minutes between when we eat. When we eat, it takes 15 minutes for the message of fullness to get to our brains. Most people finish their entire meal and then are going on second helpings in 10 minutes. So slowing down so that I can really feel my fullness. In treatment, we give our patients 30 minutes to eat so they can decide, am I still hungry or would I like to stop? And a lot of times it's like, okay, a main course ought to be around 2 fists and a side ought to be around 1 fist. Most people are eating a main course with 1 or 2 sides. That's a lot of food. Our stomachs can handle it. Discovering the satisfaction factor. That's the next principle. Is it satisfying? I've eaten inferior foods that were not good. Like for me, Little Debbie snacks and Hostess cupcakes are not good. They're not satisfying at all. I'm going to want something else. They are not a filling thing. When I go to Kneaders and I get their fruit tarts, I can enjoy sometimes the whole tart, sometimes half the tart. It is very satisfying. It is delicious, and it is a superior, worthy of my attention food. So discovering that satisfaction factor. The 7th principle is coping with your emotions without using food. This goes back to that, am I using food to numb, or am I using food for comfort? We have uncomfortable emotions, and a lot of people find themselves in the pantry when they're uncomfortable. And this actually comes from a lot of the work that I've done with Brene Brown, where she says we use food, a lot of other things, but we use food as a protection. You talk to people who are overweight and they're like, I do this to protect myself from rejection and to protect myself from relationships. So to honor our emotions. And if you want more information on that, I have lots of charts I can help you with to understand like what emotions do I have around food and why. The 8th principle is to respect my body. My body has needs. I have a metabolism that is not in my control. I have genetics that are not in my control, and I need to respect that. You can use a 12-step model here like that. I need serenity to accept that I don't have power and control over my metabolism. I've got to respect my body. The next principle is exercise to feel the difference. I think that, I don't know Brooke Hemingway personally, but the things I've read about her experience with movement in the last 3 years has been very intuitive. It's not a mantra. It's not an obsession. It's not, if she misses a day, sorry, Brooke, if I'm calling you out, but I just think I love the way that you talk about movement. If she misses, it's not this like, now I'm a bad person. So, knowing what feels good to me. I love to dance. I love Latin dancing. That feels good to me. When I do it, I'm not obsessing of calories. In fact, that's why I always encourage my patients to not exercise at a gym, because then they get obsessed about like, well, how many calories and what was my heart rate and no. So this is where I'm finding the joy in movement, the joy of it. Like I love to hike myself. I love it. I love the smells. I love the experience. So finding intuitive movement, it's a whole feel the difference exercise thing. And the last principle is honoring our health and using nutrition in a gentle way. I think that's going to be best read instead of for me to explain it. But when I was asked, hey, can you give a couple, like 1, 2, 3, here's how to start your process. I truly believe that the best way to start this is to get in touch with your senses and to disconnect when you are eating so you can really feel the food, really be with the food, be in the moment. We live in a very distracted world, a very overstimulating world. And so to try and disconnect and reconnect with our bodies, disconnect from the social media and all of the communication available stuff, reconnect with our bodies. If you have any questions or want more information, you can find me on Facebook or you can find me on Instagram, and I'd be happy to give you more information there.